So, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining our session today. My name is Siddharth, and I'm leading the advocacy for EDS TOEFL in India. So, for those of you who are looking to study abroad in the future, our session today will offer a very practical guidance on preparing how to study abroad. So, you'll be able to pick up the best advice and insights from experts in the educational domain that you see on the screen out here today. As you all know, that English proficiency is crucial to success at a university. So a good hold of the language can certainly make students feel confident and that they meet the requisite communication standards that are expected of them. So here is where the TOEFL IBD test is your best option. It provides you convenient testing options and is accepted across the world. So I thank all of you, students, parents, educators, and professionals, for taking time out of your day to join us for this interesting conversation we have lined up for you today. And I'd like all of you to stay up till very end. And our partners, McGraw will share some very exciting launches that we have planned as well. We at ETS TOEFL have created the best test prep tool that is available. So have a look at the sixth edition of the TOEFL official guide to the TOEFL IBT test. So all the best. And I'll hand it over to Pradeep from McGraw. Thanks.
Thank you, Siddharth. Hello, everyone. My name is Pradeep, and I am the Regional Head of Sales for India subcontinent. This webinar aims to offer practical guidance on preparation to study abroad. With advice from experts within the educational industry, you will leave the event with actionable top tips for your aspirations to study at a foreign university or a college. Our panelists will share their insights on various topics such as the university application process, scholarships available for international students, changes in TOEFL test acceptance rate, and the best study resources available to prepare for the exam. I would like to give you a brief overview of the structure of this panel discussion. We will see an introduction about each of our four esteemed panelists, and then we would be asking questions to them and learn from their insights. There is a separate time slot provided for Q&A at the end of this session, and you may use the Q&A box to ask your questions anytime during the event, mentioning the name of the panelist to whom the question is directed to. Let's start with the introduction of panelists. The first panelist whom we are going to look at is Michael Hampton, Director of Global Client Relations at ETS. Michelle is responsible for supporting and communicating with higher education professionals, institutions, and government agencies that accept the TOEFL tests worldwide. In her role, she works to ensure awareness and encourage best practices in using TOEFL test scores. Welcome, Michelle. Thanks for your time, and we are happy to have you here today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Our next panelist is Janet C. Ratlich, Vice Provost and Dean of the Graduate School. Janet is currently serving as the Vice Provost and Dean of the Graduate School at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. She is also a faculty member in the Computer Science and Electrical Engineering Department. Ratlich is a past board member of the Council of Graduate Schools Board of Directors, the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation Minority PhD Program Advisory Committee, previously served as the chair of the GRE board, and is a current member of the TOEFL board. Thank you so much, Janet, for joining us today. We are very glad to have you here. The next panelist we would get introduced is Nikhil Jain, co-founder and CEO at foreignadmits.com. Nikhil is the co-founder of an edtech startup having a global digital platform to help students with personalized mentorship and complete assistance for higher education and careers abroad. He is an alumnus of IIT BHU, IIT Bombay, and Monash University, Australia. He had been appointed as Mentor of Change by Niti Aayog, a policy think tank of the Government of India. His contribution has been recognized by Under Impact Entrepreneurs by Doordarshan, Bombay Stock Exchange Institute, and Brainfield Magazine. Thank you so much, Nikhil, for taking out time to be here with us today. We are very glad to have you here. The next panelist is Ali Al Haddad, Director of International Sales, McGraw Hill Professional. With over 10 years of educational sector sales experience, Ali is responsible for leading and driving product adoption and sales of McGraw-Hill Professionals digital and print products globally. Based in Dubai, Ali leads his global sales team to deliver lifelong learning tools and content, supporting students, faculty, and professionals across different sectors. In his role, Ali has exposure to customers globally and works strategically to ensure McGraw-Hill Professional consistently listens and supports the needs of customers all around the world. It's wonderful to get introduced to all of you. Our sincere thanks to all the speakers for taking out time from their busy schedule to join this panel discussion. Now, let's start the panel discussion. And the first question is to Janet. Janet, as the pandemic reached closer to home, can you please shed some light on what steps did the university sector take to address this and what will be the plans going forward?
Well, good evening, everyone, and it is my pleasure to be here. Our university, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, like universities across the country and really around the world, put safety of everyone first, and that meant converting many of our courses to being online or in a hybrid format, while some remained in person with social distancing. The campus is a much quieter place in the fall and the spring with so many people working remotely. We do have many graduate students who are working in research labs on campus, and we have a very rigorous schedule of cleaning and making sure that there is distancing available so that everyone can remain safe. For our new students, for freshmen and for new graduate students, we do have some classes that meet in person because we think it's important to help people be able to acclimate to the university properly by having some classes in person. Going forward, we're watching very closely. We are hoping that our fall semester will be much more like normal. We expect that there will continue to be mask wearing and social distancing, but we're doing everything that we can to have an on-campus experience as much as possible.
Thank you so much, Janet. It was wonderful to know that universities are pretty hopeful to have a near normal sessions in the near future. We all hope that it happens as early as possible. And our next question is to Ali. Ali, do you believe that it is the perfect time to work towards globalization, and how has McGraw-Hill adapted to this change with their test prep materials being made more accessible?
Thank you, Pradeep, and good evening, everybody. It is my pleasure to also be here today. I think this is a very relevant question to talk about, given where we are at today. All of us have been affected over the last 12 months, and it's really been a whirlwind. We've all experienced this very differently, but even in the higher education space, we haven't been immune to the challenges that we've faced as a result of the global pandemic. All over the globe, higher education institutions have had to look at the way they operate and the way that they serve their students. This has meant that the traditional model of education has been challenged, and institutions have been forced to adapt so that they can continue to serve the needs of their students across the globe safely and effectively. We see a rise in implementation of various models of distance learning, and the way students ingest content has also changed quite drastically. What we see in here is that this change is not temporary, and the global pandemic we have all recently experienced and continue to experience has acted as an accelerant for this change. Nobody knows what the short-term or the medium-term outlook for this pandemic is going to be, but everyone's gearing up for a recovery at some stage because we all hope that this won't continue forever. And then as the vaccines are rolling out across the globe, we see signs of improvement, and we anticipate that things will only continue to get better. This also means that students are once again hopeful of being able to gain access to global educational institutions very soon. And we're seeing an increased number of students preparing themselves for when that time comes. So, we're in a unique place at McGraw-Hill because we work with both the universities that the students aspire to go to, as well as the students in the countries that are taking these test prep exams so that they can, at one day very soon, apply and join universities across the globe. So it's very important for us that we evolve and adapt to the changing needs of our end users, who are the students. This means that during this time, our content, and specifically our test prep tools, are made more accessible to students, irrespective of their location or their situation. We've ramped up our digital offerings. One example of this is providing fully electronic supporting material to replace the DVDs we used to previously provide. We've also made our content available across the globe and streamlined our routes to market, making it very easy for anyone to get a hold of the test prep material they need. It doesn't matter where you are in the world or what the pandemic situation is in your country or your region within that country. Our goal is to ensure that our end users have the material they need in the format that's best for them. Obviously, we continue to monitor the situation across the globe very closely, and we're constantly adapting and adjusting what we do in order to ensure that we provide uninterrupted support to our end users. The demand for international students at universities across the globe remains, and we'll be supporting both students and higher education institutions in ensuring that that demand is met. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ali. That was wonderful insight from you, and we all hope that as quickly as possible, all the universities start functioning, and McGraw Hill's plans of providing those test prep materials in digital format is wonderful, and I'm sure that that would be very useful for the learners also. Thank you so much, and let's go to Michelle with the next question. Michelle, good evening. How important is India as a market for universities globally? And what is the support being provided by organizations like ETS to facilitate remote learning?
Well, good evening to all of you, and thank you very much for allowing me to answer this question. It is very important to note that even before COVID, India was, in many cases, either the first or second largest sender of international students abroad to study. So many of the destination countries that have traditionally been represented, the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, they have continued to have a great number of students coming along. But really, in the past few years, we've seen some changes going on. So, in the case of both the UK and the US, what we have seen is that some of the administration and governmental policies have changed so far as allowing students to immigrate, and then the post-study work opportunities have been restricted. And that's changed some of the flow that we're seeing from Indian students. They're drifting away from those two typically first choice kinds of countries to look at some other locations. Canada, of course, Australia and New Zealand are popular because they are English speaking, but the rise in the number of English taught classes in countries where English is not the normal language of instruction has been on the increase really for the past 15 to 20 years. And that means that countries like Germany, China, excuse me, the Netherlands, Norway, they're up and comers and very attractive to many of the Indian students. So they're casting a net a little bit farther in looking for the programs that are of interest to them. I do think that really the pandemic has caused many students to question whether they want to be very far from home as a whole. So certainly some students are looking to stay within region, and perhaps that means within the greater Southeast Asia area or Asia as a whole. And it also means that students might be looking to stay closer to family. If they have family in the other countries, they may be willing to stay near them and study so that they do have a support system. So we're seeing those kinds of shifts in migration right now. And post-COVID, I think some of that will still carry on because it is going to take a while for us to really regain our situation. Now, how ETS is supporting this is that really since we were first created and since Toefl was created in '64, it has always been a test that was used by universities all around the world for admission to higher education studies. So that is continuing. And another thing that we have seen, as I mentioned, is the number of countries that are now beginning to teach coursework in English are now requiring TOEFL scores of their students who are coming in to study, whether it's remotely or study in person. So the fact that we have made that an option is a plus. We also are able, and really since March of 2020, we have been able to offer a remote version of the TOEFL IBT test because so many of the test centers had closed. So that gives the students the opportunity to have a choice right now because some test centers have reopened. They can either go to those locations and test, or they can test at home, provided that they meet all the technical specs and they find that that's maybe a safer option to them. So that's really how we're choosing to support the continuing study of the students who are willing to pursue higher education, both remotely and in person.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you. It was wonderful to know that India has been the second largest country to have more number of students going abroad. I was not aware of that. Thanks for that. It is wonderful, and it was glad to know the kind of support provided by ETS to facilitate those students who find it difficult to go to the different centers, test-taking centers in these challenging times. It was great. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you. I will come back to you again. And now let's go to Nikhil. Nikhil, what are the risks that students need to be aware of when committing to studying abroad in such times? And what are the best guidance resources available? And if you could share insights on your study abroad journey, it would be great. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. So, ideally, in this current pandemic time, as coming from a student background, students should really look to understand how the online education or the offline education should be looking like. So, ideally, currently, universities are operating predominantly in a hybrid mode, online mix offline. So, that's something students should look towards in the near future. That's a bigger change that we could see. And then the visa applications is something the students are usually worried about. So probably checking about the visa requirements when the embassies are going to open up. That's for the current students who are planning. And then the best guidance that you can currently get from this in this particular era is actually talking to the students who are on ground or the alumni of those universities who are currently there and speaking to them. You can use multiple platforms, social media platforms are there. You can also use foreign admits on that note. But then getting a first-hand perspective is really important, and that's going to set the stage for you that how you want to go, when you want to go. You can also look towards the status of vaccine delivery. A lot of countries are now looking towards vaccinating people, so that's something you should be able to look at. And then, if you're looking at the course perspective, picking a course in this era is very interesting. So now the old courses may not work, so you have to pick courses which are more in demand or going to be more in demand. Something like digital transformation, supply chain, IoT, biotech. So these are the courses which would be predominantly more in demand in the post-COVID scenario. You know? So, and then coming back to when I studied abroad somewhere around 2016 to 1920, I had like three countries in general in choices like US, Canada, and Australia, and I would be able to narrow down my options and get to very granular level of choice, like what test to give, which university to pick, how the funding is going to happen, and all those things. Alumni, current students, and the professors really help. Writing to them on email or through LinkedIn or ResearchGate or even through your alumni network would really help, and that really gives a very clear understanding or like a first-hand experience of how it feels to apply and to compete in the highly competitive application scenarios. And I believe getting three full funded PhD was never easy, but then with those kind of support I felt it easier than ever, in that sense.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikhil. I am sure these practical tips would have been immensely useful for all the attendees of this webinar today. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. I'll come back to you again, and let's go to Janet again with a query on how will the university conduct the program for students? Is it going to be online or classroom only or blended? Are there any additional scholarships being made available?
Planning for the fall is underway right now, and as we are all aware, things seem to be changing rapidly. We're being optimistic that the vaccine will be available and that people will be able to get the vaccine in time for the fall semester. And that is what our experts are telling us. And so we're counting on them to be correct. So we still expect that some classes will be online, some classes will be in a blended format, but most classes will be in person. And we are making our plans so that those classes that are in person will be in rooms so that people will be able to spread out, be properly social distance, wearing masks. Some courses, some of the classes may be in a blended format where on Tuesdays you're in person and Thursdays you might be online. And that way we can make maximum use of the classroom space. I think right now we're planning to be mostly in person and watching how things go and having contingency plans in place so that if we have to back off and have, for safety reasons, a little bit more online, we will be doing that. But we really do believe that it is important to have people be able to be in person and be able to interact with each other. We have regular testing that's going on so that people are able to know whether they might have COVID and be contagious because safety is really, really important. Many of our departments offer scholarships and graduate assistantships. Some of our programs are mostly expecting students to be able to pay on their own. It really is a mixture. And so I think that it is important to look at all of the different sources that you have for finding funding. And you can apply for scholarships and graduate assistantships on campus, and they will let you know if you do receive it. It is important to note that these are very competitive, and so not everyone will be able to get them. But we do have them available, particularly scholarships that help with the transition for the first semester that you arrive.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you. That sounds like a comprehensive plan which the university is having for the fall semester. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, and I'm sure that your inputs would have been, very useful for these attendees who have been attending now with us. And let's go to Nikhil for another question. And how can students prepare themselves for university applications currently? And what do you envision happening in a post-COVID scenario, Nikhil?
Yeah, the first and foremost advice, since I speak to almost like hundreds of students almost every day, students tend to delay, and this is something I see mostly in India. I'm not sure how it happens in Southeast Asia and other. So students usually try and look, delay it as much as possible, in the entire application process, and that's not a good practice, honestly. If you're intending to get a good admission with scholarships, you should apply much before the application deadlines. It's more like a first come first serve thing. Okay, and if you are even planning to go for, let's say, next year or next to next year, you should give your test upfront, because this is the time when you're in your home, you'll not have enough amount of workload right now. So probably getting your test cleared and scoring really high on your test would be really important to create an edge, because in the post-COVID scenario, many people are going to go abroad. We have seen a huge surge of applications, going for 2021, 2022, and further. That's one thing. Secondly, it also gives you an opportunity of window, because a lot of people are hesitant in this particular time. You can use this as an opportunity window and make use out of. A lot of students take this as an opportunity that if I'm getting to a next school, I can go to a school which is a little bit better than X, in this current scenario. That's something is also the assumptions in the market. And talking about the, I would say, the guidance part of it, like how do you plan, or how do you, try to make most out of your time, it's more about profile building. If you're not doing anything much, probably focus on the areas where you've been weak at. If you're planning to shift your field, focus on the subjects or the fields where you want to grow, and then pick up an online course or pick up a project online and do it. Okay, and take up part in online conferences, which are also happening more predominant. And that's the beauty of online world. Now you can even attend a US event while studying in India and still get the benefits of networking, unlike previous times, right? So you make most out of the time, and yes, getting your test cleared in the first place is really good.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nikhil. That was a very valid and practical piece of advice to the attendees as well as students who are looking forward for them, and they can prepare this themselves for this test this during this time. Thanks for it, and let's now move on to Michelle to learn more about TOEFL test per se. Michelle, the TOEFL IBT test is preferred by most universities around the world. What are the reasons for that? And could you share the recent changes in the TOEFL test structure?
Certainly, I'm happy to do that, Pradeep. And I'm actually going to take over control of the slides to be able to cover all of that. Um, I'm going to talk to you about both the traditional test center TOEFL IBT test, but also the TOEFL IBT Home Edition, because both tests share many of the same features. So the reasons why the TOEFL is so highly valued and preferred by universities around the world is for these four core reasons. It is definitely the one test that measures academic English 100% of the time. We take our test questions from lectures that are given by professors in classrooms, from the kinds of college and university textbooks you would read, and that's what creates the questions on the test. You don't need to be knowledgeable in the subject matter, but rather we want to make sure that we're assessing your ability to read the more rigorous kind of material that you will be able to come across in your curriculum during your university studies. We want to make sure that you're able to synthesize and understand it and communicate out an answer based on what you read or what you hear in that academic setting. It's also the one test that is truly fair and unbiased in its scoring. The scoring is not done for any part of the TOEFL assessment in the test center itself. Instead, our speaking and our writing is evaluated by actual ESL or English as second or other language educators who have years of experience in working with students of various levels of abilities with English. And they are the ones who are listening anonymously to your responses or reading your responses and evaluating how you did. We are also using the computer system in our artificial intelligence to gauge whether or not you have the correct structure and what you've written is an actual sentence with significant meaning as we go through that process. And then the listening and the the listening and the reading sections are scored automatically because they are multiple choice questions and can be done that way. So we really combine both aspects because we need a human to make sure that what it is that you're communicating does make sense and is logical, but we can apply the AI technology to make sure that it is grammatically correct. We also know that the fact that TOEFL preparation amongst our test takers means that our students are going a step beyond and really making sure that they're building the foundational skills necessary in their study of the English language to be able to communicate in all aspects of campus life, whether it's standing in the university center talking to their classmates, or if it's in an office meeting with their professor and advisor, or if it's at a job interview for an internship. In all situations, the TOEFL IBT is able to evaluate your English speaking ability and your ability to communicate. We also know that it stands out then as an assessment when students submit their TOEFL IBT scores. Universities know that you challenged yourself to demonstrate that you are quite strong in your abilities and you wanted to share that with them. So that's been a real boon for our test takers. So you'll find that when we talk about the fact that the test has been accepted worldwide, let's first focus in on the US. Right now, we have, excuse me, all of the institutions in the US that are accepting it, and the ones that have responded have said that 9 out of 10 prefer the TOEFL test as their English language placement test to see from the applicants. A, because they know what they're getting from the test itself, but they also know that it means that a student is able to perform really quite well in the academic environment. We also know that because the TOEFL IBT Home Edition is the exact same test that we give in the test center, universities were very willing since March to accept it for admission. And it has made a difference because it enabled students to still be able to meet their admission deadlines in applying. Now, when we talk about the rest of the world, it is true that universities in those other countries, the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, can accept and vouch for students who have taken the TOEFL IBT and accept those scores for admission. So feel free to still take the test and use it, even if you're looking at universities in a variety of locations. It's great to be able to take one test and have many choices. Now, as we look at the actual design of the test, you will find, and many of you might have friends or siblings who have taken the test before maybe August 1st, 2019, and they would talk about the fact that the test was really very long. It was more than 3 hours. And all along, we had been hearing from students for many years that it was rather exhausting. They were very concerned about how fatigued they were taking a very long test. So we were able to do some research and discover that we could actually eliminate some of the questions in the test lost my connection. There we go. I had a little pop-up on my computer telling me that my system was doing a little system check. So that's what that was. But you'll see that if you take the test now, whether you are taking it in a test center or at the home, you will find that you are going to get a 3-hour test in length. And you'll see in the reading section that you will have either 3 or 4 reading passages provided to you, and they will be with 10 questions each that you will answer. In the listening section now, you will have either 3 or 4 lectures to hear, and you'll have 6 questions each that you will answer. And you'll listen to 2 or 3 conversations with 5 questions each that you'll have to answer. In the case of the speaking section, you will actually hear and perform 4 different tasks. You are going to speak to an independent task and 3 integrated tasks, which is using multiple skills. And in the case of writing, we didn't make any changes there. So you will still have 1 integrated essay to write and 1 independent essay. So let's go to the next slide. And here I wanted to point out very quickly, we'll watch this go through. We have, since 2019, begun to make some enhancements to the test to make the testing experience better for our test takers. And it certainly has made a difference in their own satisfaction with the assessment, but also for some, given them the opportunity to perform even stronger. So some of those changes are that I can point out to you now, that we've made the registration process easier. So for students, what that means is we have now made it possible for you to register on any device, whether it's an Apple or an Android. You will also be able to utilize the Google Maps search feature to find out where exactly the test center is located if you choose to test in the test center. You are also going to find that you have access to official test prep. And I'm proud to say McGraw Hill is our official publisher, so that you'd be able to access it through the app and through that registration process. And you're also going to find that the registration system has been redesigned for a look and feel that is much more user friendly, and that makes a world of difference. We have also offered a My Best Scores feature. And what that means is we are providing you on your score reports with a combined look at your highest section score in all of the valid test dates that you've taken. So if you've tested more than once, you could see a combination of your highest section scores in all 4 of the skills, and then we add those together to come up with your My Best total score. Your score report will also still show your single test date, the test that you just took, with your 4 section scores and your total score. But we found that for some institutions that have set forth a possibly section score requirement or a total score requirement, for students to be able to take the test maybe just twice and meet that either total score requirement with their My Best scores or their section score requirement with their My Best scores, it means that the student has to test fewer times, and that does help save your pocket. But it also gives the university the opportunity to still have you as an applicant meeting their requirement. We shortened the test, which I already addressed. We have made available now, and certainly before the pandemic, afternoon testing times. You may have known that before, for the most part, around the world, you could only take the test in the morning. We added PM or afternoon sessions in certain locations because of just the high volume of demand of being able to take the test. So that gives the students the opportunity to be able to have go to work or school maybe during the day and then test at an afternoon session without having the conflict of having to choose one or the other. So we're trying to be sensitive to your needs and situations in those cases. We made available a full-length free practice test that you can have access to. And the benefit is it also mirrors the fact that you will automatically at the end see your results for unofficial results for the listening and the reading sections. We also have reduced the retest waiting time period. Before, you used to have to wait a full 12 days between testing a second time. And instead, what we've done is we've shortened that window now to just 3 days between your test attempts. And that's particularly helpful if you're looking at a very close deadline for admission and you need to get your test scores underway and sent off. We've created a Toefl Official App that is available both in the App Store and in Google Play, and you can use that to register online. You can use it also to purchase your test prep products, and you can also use it to access that Google Maps feature to search for the location of your test centers, which is particularly important. The faster score reporting aspect for us means that instead of getting your scores within 10 to 12 days of taking the test, you actually will see your scores online in your registration profile as early as 6 days after your test. And you could then print or download your student copy of your score report in 7 days after taking the test. And for institutions, your score recipients, the universities that you send your scores to could get their scores within 6 days after you've listed them during your registration process and you've taken the test, they could get it 6 days later. Or if you're sending it after you've taken the test, like a number of days or months later, it will take us about 9 days to process that score report internally before we're able to put it in the mail and send it off to the university. So that's also a shorter time period. We've also made sure to extend the online registration deadline window for test takers. So that means that you can actually register online up to 2 days before your desired test date. Yes, you'll still have to pay a late fee, which actually begins as early as 7 days before your desired test date, but at least we're still letting you register in that window. We didn't before. And the last thing is something I've already mentioned, the fact that now at the end of the test, in either the test center location or when you test at home, you actually will able to see on screen your unofficial results for the listening and the reading sections. See how well you did. For some students, that gives them the opportunity then to decide to go ahead and let their test be scored, or if they feel that they didn't do as well as they had hoped, they can choose to cancel their test at that time. But in either case, both of those features, all of those features actually are available with both the at-home test and the test in the test center. Now, speaking of the test that we offer at home, you'll see that, again, the format is the same. All of the features and the on-screen access are functional, both in a test center and if you take the home edition IBT. The benefits of the IBT at home are that, again, you can control the environment. It is safer for you if you're concerned about health issues at this point. You'll find that during the test, when you take it at home, you are proctored the entire time on screen by a human proctor who is monitoring your progress. You'll also find that it is a test that we have now decided we're going to offer continuously, because even if and when COVID ends, there could be other reasons why students might not be able to get to a test center. It could just be that there are none nearby, and it would be a hardship for them to travel a great distance. So being able to test in your own home is a real benefit that we want to continue to offer. Students who take the Toefl IBT Home Edition find that they can register 24 hours a day, just as you can for the test center. But the difference is we offer the home version on 4 days, Sunday through Wednesday. And in the test centers, as you know, typically in your part of the world, we're offering the test either on Friday or Saturday or Sunday. And then the registration experience, again, it is all very easy to do either in the Toefl Official App or online. And we know that over 11,000 institutions certainly accept and look forward to receiving your TOEFL results, regardless of whether you took the test at home or you took it in a test center. And those are the many reasons why we think that taking TOEFL can lead to your success for your university study. And at this point, I'm going to hand it back over control as well as the presentation to Pradeep. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It was wonderful to have your valuable inputs and insights on the important topics of TOEFL and its registration process and what changes have it undergone. And now let's have a look at the learning resources for this exam from McGraw. So McGraw has published 3 books for TOEFL exam in association with ETS. One is Official Guide to TOEFL IBT Test, which is in its 6th edition. Official TOEFL IBT Tests Volume 1, 4th edition. And Official TOEFL IBT Tests Volume 2, 3rd edition. These are the only 3 new edition books for TOEFL exams that contain authentic exams and explanation. If you look at TOEFL Official Guide 6th edition, it is the most complete TOEFL review available on the market. In addition to 4 full-length retired tests, it includes thorough review sections, to walk students through everything they need to know to succeed on every section of the exam. There are real TOEFL questions for practice, as well as explanations of every section of the test and information on what is expected of students for every speaking and writing task. Students learn how to construct a good answer and how to integrate speaking, listening, and writing skills to demonstrate college level English proficiency. The accompanying electronic tests mimic what the students will see on test day, and all are Section 508 compatible, that means are accessible for students with disabilities. If you look at TOEFL official tests, volume 1 and volume 2 series, each volume contains 5 full length formally administered TOEFL tests with answer explanations, sample responses for the writing section, and sample verbal responses for the speaking section. There is also a downloadable audio files for access to all the passages and sample responses in the listening and speaking sections. The uniqueness of these new editions are these books have most updated content to reflect the revised or shorter TOEFL exam. A while ago, Michelle explained that to you. And these books also have digital resources online. The access to digital resources would be through an access code, which you will get it through a scratch off sticker at the end of each book. You can just catch it off, get that code, use it, and get your access to the digital resources. You all would be glad to know that you will be able to access the only books which have TOEFL materials to contain actual retired TOEFL question and answers straight from the test makers. These books are one-stop solutions for all the exam takers, and these are available in all offline booksellers across India as well as e-commerce like Amazon and Flipkart also. If you have any difficulty in procuring these books or any information about these books, of availability of these books, you can feel free to contact the McGraw Hill India team at professional_India@mheducation.com for any queries with regard to these books. We would be more than glad to support you and assist you in making these books available to your nearest point of purchase. And we wish all the attendees a very best for their TOEFL exams. And with that, I would request Siddharth to take over from me and facilitate Q&A sessions, and then end the session with a vote of thanks.
Slides as well on the deck and move to the last set of questions. Thanks. I'll probably now like to get Janet on screen for probably the first question that we've got from a student. Janet, there's a candidate called Zenith Prakash who's asked, how should I prepare for masters in the US, and what exams should I take to get into a program at the master's level?
The answer really depends on the program that you're interested in studying. For the most part, universities in the US have all of their requirements that are available online. So, for example, in the US, almost every program is going to require an English language test. And so this preparation for TOEFL is something that all of you should be preparing to do. Some master's programs require other tests, such as the GRE, while others don't. During the time of COVID, many universities are waiving the requirement for the GRE. And so you should check with the university to see what is required. Really, the important thing on your end is to look at the websites and find out what programs are available to see what is most of interest to you. So, for example, in a computing discipline, many people look to computer science, but there is also data science, software engineering, health IT, cybersecurity. There are lots of different programs that require a similar background, but you should look at all of the opportunities that are available so that you find the program that is right for you.
Sure, thanks for that answer. I think that did provide clarity to that question. So thanks so much, Janet. I'll probably now move on to the next question, which is to Michelle.
Yes.
Michelle, I have a candidate called Nishant who's asking, is the TOEFL alone required for a master's education? Is that the only English language test which is required? So could you probably just throw some light on that?
Sure. So you will find, just as Janet mentioned, it is going to be important for you as an individual to visit each of the program's websites that you're considering to find out which tests they require. It is possible that many of the universities, knowing that India is a former British Commonwealth, they may not require students from India to take an English language placement test at all, and others do. So it's important to pay attention to that. If you are considering looking at 2 or 3 different graduate schools, their master's programs, then if 2 of the 3 require you to take an English language placement test, then yes, I would recommend taking the TOEFL to satisfy them. If you choose to send your scores to that third institution, they may or may not be factored into the admission decision, but you know that you will definitely be meeting the minimum admission requirements of those other 2. And it really is about making sure that you're meeting the admission requirements so that you will be considered a viable candidate in your application. Not every master's program is going to require that, but do your homework and find out who does.
Thanks. That'll be very helpful for students to actually know that. So thank you so much for your response, Michelle. I'll probably now ask the next question to Nikhil. So, Nikhil, if you could be online. Nikhil, this
Yep.
question is from a candidate called Ketaki. I know you've replied to her over the chat as well, but for the benefit, it will be fruitful to study in Australia, given the current times where the education, most of it is being taught online, and whether it's worth studying online.
Yes, I think the ideal situation, again, I'm talking from the student standpoint of view. First, speak to the university or the current students or alumni how the online education is, and then speak to even the recruiters, about how are they looking at online education, in the Australia for that note. Okay, that would give you more live insights. I know a lot of my friends study in Australia and top-notch universities. Some of them have gotten jobs, but some of them are struggling. So it's more about connecting to the recruiters and understanding their needs, because ultimately what I heard that the intention is to get a holistic experience. And going ahead, we all don't know like how the online versus offline experience going to pan out. So speaking to the universities or the students would really make sense. And then not paying right now upfront as of now, just waiting for the university's responses, because it's a huge amount of matter of investment that you're going to make. So speak to them, understand how the education is going to pan out, and based on that, make a call.
Thanks, Nikhil. I think that's really insightful. And given the times and the options that students have, I think that's the best course of action for them to do. So, perfect. I'll probably now ask the next question to Ali. And Ali, if you could be online.
Sure.
So these questions were coming in on Facebook, where we are live streaming as well. Early students want to know what are the other publications or other test prep material which is available with McGraw Hill for the TOEFL test, apart from the official guide, and how can it be accessed in India?
Yeah, so we do have content for TOEFL throughout India, as Pradeep has gone through and shared with you guys. All the books that we have and all the official guides that we do sell come with, as I mentioned earlier, online supporting material. where students would have a code at the back of the book where they can go online and look up and get access to any kind of support that they need, and as well as some mock exams or older exams as well. We also have content for GRE in case that's a requirement at a university. And all of this is available. You can buy them through Amazon, through Flipkart, or through any of the local retailers in India.
Perfect. I think that'll answer the question, and also shows us, the kind of access that you have to test prep materials, which are available through McGraw Hill. So thanks so much for that. The next question, I'll probably ask Janet to come back up again. Thanks, Janet. I have a candidate called Prateek who is asking a question that he wants to switch from an engineering background to a management background. What are the challenges and the opportunities for him to be able to do that?
Interestingly enough, I was just working on an answer in the chat for that. There are several different options. One that you may not have considered is that there are programs called engineering management that combine backgrounds in engineering, but provide you the management tools that you would need to be a manager in an engineering setting. And so these programs allow you to build on the engineering background that you have, but learn all sorts of things about project management and everything that you would need if you wanted to be in management and supervising engineers. We have programs such as an MBA, Master of Business Administration, and those could take you away from strictly being on the engineering side of the house and possibly looking at marketing and other areas. It is actually quite common for people with an engineering background to move into an MBA program. And so it really depends on what your career goals are. Again, it's important to do some background homework to look at what the career opportunities are based on the particular degree program. And so if you want to stay in and around engineering, consider programs that are more like engineering management or technical management or technology management. Also within many business schools, they do specialty programs that build on a technical expertise in addition to the programs that are broad for management backgrounds.
Perfect. Thanks, Janet. And I'd like you to stay there to answer the next question, which is from a candidate called Gautam, where he's asked more details about how to get entry for PhD programs in the US. And if you could probably give some tips and advice on how to make an application for a PhD level course, what are the entry requirements that are set by US universities. If you could throw some light on that, that'd be great.
Certainly. First and foremost, a PhD program is a research-based degree. It is to help prepare you to be a researcher for your career. And so if you have opportunities to do research as an undergraduate student where you work on problems that are open-ended, then that kind of preparation is very good for getting a PhD. Almost any university that you apply to is going to ask you to write an essay. And very often there might be an essay that is based on what interests you have, what is your research area of interest. And it is understood that if you haven't had a lot of research experience, you don't know exactly what you want to do. But the admissions committees are looking to see, have you thought about it? Why do you want to get a PhD? Do you have an understanding of what the PhD degree is about? Because almost everyone who's pursuing a PhD in the US is able to get a graduate assistantship or a fellowship. And so the university is investing a lot of time and a lot of money. And so they want to make sure that when you're coming to the program, that the PhD is something that you're serious about. The PhD takes many more years than the master's program does. And so the level of commitment on the side of the student is really important, and it's important to know why you want to get a PhD degree. For people who are pursuing a PhD, many think that that's only if you want to be a university professor. But the fact is, most people who get PhDs do not work at a university. There are all kinds of jobs out in companies that are, or research institutes that really need the talent and the background of people who have a PhD. And this is particularly true in my discipline, in engineering and in computer science. Most of the people who get PhDs go work for a company or a research laboratory. So in summary, the background that you need, again, the same advice of looking at the programs, because they're very often specialized, and you have to look at the faculty at each university. Because you may, for example, my area is digital signal processing, and I look particularly at speech and audio signals. Not every university has that. And so you have to look to see that there are faculty who are doing research in the area that interests you most, and look at what they're doing. You can even contact the faculty member in advance. Most faculty have a lot of information on their website, along with copies of papers that they've done, so that you can really get to understand what kind of work they're doing. And so, again, it's doing that background work and really paying attention to what sorts of things interest you, so that when you're writing the essay about what you want to do, you can actually cite and say, I'm very interested in the work of these two professors at the university, and this is some of the background work that I've done in this area and why I'm interested in pursuing this for my PhD.
Thanks for giving us such specific guidance, Janet. I think that was really helpful for the student who do want to get insights in that area. Thanks so much. The next question, I would want to probably ask it to Nikhil. So, Nikhil, if you could be online. I have a candidate, Nitin, who's asking what has been the impact on students looking to study abroad due to COVID-19. If you could just throw some light on that, and also probably talk a little bit about student mobility given the times that we are in.
Absolutely. First of all, just a fun fact, COVID was 19 and it's 21. So there has been a change in the entire study abroad scenario. We have seen predominantly 3 times surge in the number of applications that we are filing for students. So students are more keen to look to study abroad. Ideally, it's more to do with getting a specialized education, because that's been more on the demand side of it, since the industries are changing more rapidly. So the current level of bachelor's education in India sometimes is not enough. So if you're looking at COVID-19 scenario, countries like New Zealand, Australia have done phenomenally well in controlling the COVID and attracting a lot of students. On the other side, Canada has been more welcoming, and a lot of students have looked towards Canada on that note. But then the market leader has always been US. So US people have deferred it, but now US is seeing far more surge in applications in terms of the previous times as of now. So going ahead 21, 22, you would see more competition. So apply in time. That's the only advice that I can give you.
Perfect. Thanks for the short and succinct answer. I think it provides a lot of clarity and a hope for students looking to study abroad in the future as well. Thanks so much. Uh, and Probably I'll end with one last question to Michelle. So, Michelle, if you could come online.
Sure.
Students want to know more about the availability of the TOEFL IBT test at test centers and the home edition version in India. So, if you could just share a little bit about that. Thanks.
Certainly. So we know that, excuse me, we know that a great many of the test centers in India that have come back online are observing the social distancing. So even though a test center might normally, before COVID, be able to handle, let's say, 50 students at a time, because of the restrictions for spatial and social distancing, they maybe now can only accommodate 20 or 25 students at a time. So that means that we're actually able to test fewer students, but that also means that we are paying attention to how many of our test centers are open and how many of them have multiple labs that we could maybe open up as well. So we are encouraging students to pay attention to their deadlines and be mindful of that. We know we have I think it's over 70% of our test centers in India back up and running and open. But because of the fact that we can't run at full capacity, some of our test takers then are choosing to go with the at-home option and take the TOEFL IBT home edition. And they may be people that would normally never have tested at home, but because of the reduced capacity in the test center, they don't want to wait maybe an extra month before they're able to test in a test center. And they would like to accomplish their target of taking the test maybe this month, maybe in February. So that's the viable option. Again, if you test in the at-home version, we offer testing 24 hours a day, Sunday through Wednesday. It's on local time, so you don't have to worry about the fact that TOEFL is a test made in the U.S. It could be at a time that works for you. And we know, since one of the features that we require is that you be in a room taking the test alone, that means that some of our test takers within their household are testing kind of at like 1 a.m. Or very late at night because everybody else is asleep and they know that they won't be disturbed for those 3 hours. So that's something else to keep in mind. But either option is good. Again, more than 70% of our test centers in India have resumed testing. So it really is your choice.
Perfect. Thanks so much for the response as well, Michelle. And I would now probably ask the controller to put all panelists up on the screen, where I close the session with a vote of thanks. So thanks everyone for joining in today. On behalf of ETS TOEFL and McGraw Hill, I extend a hearty vote of thanks to all the panelists who joined us here today and have spared their time from their busy schedules to be a part of our session. So we are and we were live on our online Facebook channel. So for those of you students who missed out on a part of our session, you can actually revisit it on our online channel, so you can subscribe to us and follow us there to receive more updates about the tests and additional test prep materials. Today we certainly had an opportunity to hear all your thoughts and the questions that you've posted to the panelists, so this will certainly be of help and probably encourage more students to study abroad and help us hold more such future events as well. So all our panelists today have certainly enlightened the minds of students who've joined in today for studying abroad. They've certainly shown us a new path towards it. And so my gratitude to all the speakers. Thanks for gracing the occasion and sharing your opinions today. Thanks and good evening to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Bye, everyone.